I live in a small, quiet town in northern Illinois. The kind of place where neighbors wave, kids ride their bikes until dusk, and you rarely lock your door. At least, we didn't. Not until this happened. My house backs up to a strip of woods. Nothing too dense, maybe 40 feet of trees between our backyard and a long abandoned bike trail. When I moved in with my wife 2 years ago, we actually thought it was kind of peaceful. Deer would wander through, sometimes even a fox, but otherwise, the area stayed quiet. It started one night in early spring. I was up late working from home. Our office is at the back of the house with a big window that overlooks the yard. The lights inside were on, and outside it was pitch black. So from where I sat, I couldn't really see into the backyard, just my own reflection in the glass. Around 1:30 in the morning, I stood up to stretch. I glanced at the window, out of habit, and that's when I noticed something. In the faint glare of my monitor, I saw it, a shape, barely visible, someone standing just beyond the tree line. At first I thought it was my imagination, but when I turned off my desk lamp and let my eyes adjust, I could make out a silhouette, definitely a person. They weren't moving, just standing there. I watched for a solid minute, heart pounding. Then I turned the light back on. Just like that, the reflection made it impossible to see outside again. I told myself it was probably a neighbor, maybe a kid cutting through the woods. Still, I locked the door for the first time since we moved in. The next morning, I walked out to the tree line. There were footprints in the soft dirt, adult-sized, deep, fresh. I brought it up to my wife, but she brushed it off. Probably a hiker, she said. That trail isn't that abandoned. I let it go. For a while, nothing else happened. Until 2 weeks later. It was a Saturday night. My wife was visiting her sister out of town, and I had the house to myself. I grilled a steak, watched a movie, and around midnight, I stepped out back for a smoke. It was cold. Still, the air was quiet, almost too quiet. That's when I heard it. Not a voice, not footsteps. It was a clicking sound, sharp and irregular, like metal tapping against metal. I froze. The sound was coming from the woods. I flicked on the backyard floodlights, and everything went still. No more clicking. Nothing. I stood there for a moment, scanning the trees. Then I saw it. Not a person this time. Something reflective. A glint of light, hanging from one of the lower branches about 10 feet inside the tree line. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped out to it, my gut twisting with every step. It was a trail cam, a brand new one, strapped tightly to the tree, aiming directly at my house, my backyard, my office window. I called the sheriff the next morning. They took the camera as evidence and confirmed it didn't belong to the county or any park ranger. It wasn't for wildlife monitoring. Someone had put it there recently. Someone who had been watching our house. They pulled the footage. The sheriff called me in personally to view it. I won't forget what I saw. On 4 different nights, between 1 and 3 a.m., a man walked into my backyard. Sometimes he stood at the edge of the trees. Sometimes he got closer. Much closer. There was a shot, maybe 10 feet from our back door, where he just stood there facing the house. No mask, no tools, just a dead expression. The last clip was the worst. He walked right up to the window of my office, his face inches from the glass, staring in, just watching me work, looking straight at me. We installed cameras and motion lights that same day, and we moved our bedroom to the front of the house. I haven't used the back office since. The police never found him. But every time I work late now, I feel it. Like someone's still there, just beyond the tree line. I bought a small fixer-upper last year in rural Oregon. Just me and my dog Harley. I worked from home and wanted privacy, so I picked a place with a big backyard that backed up to dense forest. No neighbors for at least half a mile. It was peaceful at first. Quiet mornings, bonfires at night, but that all changed after I found the hole. It was a Saturday in late September. I was clearing brush along the back edge of my property when I noticed something odd. A small, round patch of disturbed soil near the tree line. It looked like something had been recently dug up or maybe buried, about the size of a manhole cover. Harley wouldn't go near it. He just stood there, growling low, tail stiff. I didn't think much of it. Figured it was an animal burrow or an old stump someone dug out. Still, the shape was too perfect, like it had been done with tools. The next morning, I looked again. The dirt had been moved, fresh tracks around it, boot prints. That's when I realized someone had been in my yard, overnight, digging. So I set up a trail cam facing the woods, hidden in a birdhouse I mounted on a tree. Nothing fancy, just motion-activated video with night vision. I angled it to catch the hole and about 30 feet of surrounding woods. Then I waited. For 3 nights, nothing. No motion alerts, no footage, no changes to the hole. But on the 4th night, I got a notification around 2:17 a.m. When I watched the video the next morning, I felt like I was going to throw up. A man, late 40s maybe, walked into frame from the woods. He wore a hoodie with the hood up, gloves, and a headlamp. He knelt at the hole and started digging with a small shovel. Calm, methodical, like he'd done it before. He wasn't burying something, he was unearthing it. And then he reached in with both arms and pulled something out. A black plastic garbage bag, heavy. He dragged it just out of frame, then walked back into view, empty-handed, and reburied the hole. The whole thing took about 10 minutes. The footage ended with him turning slightly toward the direction of my house. He looked directly at the camera, like he knew. I called the sheriff immediately. They brought dogs, taped off the area, and dug the hole up completely. What they found was worse than I imagined. Several bags, some newer, some partially decomposed. Inside were animal remains, dozens of them, bones, fur, organs, not buried like a pet, stored like trophies. They never found out who he was, but he knew where I lived. He knew I had seen him. For weeks after, I'd find little things out of place in my yard. A garden spade that wasn't mine, boot prints by the shed, once a single dead squirrel left neatly on my back step. Then it stopped. I moved 6 months later, never looked back. But every time I walk near the edge of the woods, I check the dirt, just to make sure nothing's been dug up. I used to live in a rental house on the edge of a cul-de-sac in central Pennsylvania. It wasn't anything fancy, 2 bedrooms, small fenced yard, and an old wooden shed out back that leaned just enough to look like it was about to fall over. My landlord told me not to worry about the shed. It was just for storage and hadn't been used in years. I didn't have any reason to go inside, so I never did. I wish I had. The first weird thing I noticed happened about a month after I moved in. I came home from work one evening, and the gate to the backyard was wide open. I always locked it. I made a point of it. I figured maybe the wind blew it open, or I forgot, or whatever. Then it happened again, twice in 1 week. And this time, I knew I'd latched it. I remembered doing it. I started checking the cameras on my doorbell more religiously, but the backyard wasn't covered. That was the mistake. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up thirsty. My kitchen faces the backyard with a small window above the sink. As I was filling my glass, something caught my eye through the glass. The motion light clicked on. I froze. There was movement behind the shed. I turned off the kitchen light, crouched down, and peered through the window again. And that's when I saw a figure. Tall, hunched slightly, moving slowly from behind the shed into the yard. He wasn't trying to break in. He just stood there, looking up at the house. Then he walked over to the shed, opened the door, and went inside. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I called the police. They checked the shed but found it empty. Nothing suspicious. They said it was probably a transient or someone passing through the neighborhood. That explanation didn't sit right with me. So that evening, I borrowed a heavy-duty lock from my neighbor and sealed the shed shut. What happened the next night made my blood run cold. At around 3 a.m., I was woken up by this horrible grinding sound, like someone jamming metal against wood. I grabbed my phone, tiptoed into the kitchen, and peeked out the back window again. The shed door was open. The lock was still hanging from the latch, but it had been sliced through, clean, and whoever had been inside was gone. The cops came again. This time, I insisted they take a closer look inside the shed. That's when they found it. In the back corner, partially buried under a tarp, was a sleeping bag. Next to it, some protein bars, empty water bottles, and a notebook. A spiral one, the kind you'd get in high school. Inside were pages and pages of handwritten notes, descriptions of my house, notes on when lights turned on and off, when I left for work, when I returned, what time I went to bed, what I wore. There were sketches too, crude pencil drawings of me through the kitchen window. In the living room, at my desk, one sketch was labeled 3:12 a.m. watching. He hasn't seen me yet. I moved out 2 weeks later, broke the lease, didn't care, lost my deposit. Whoever he was, they never caught him. And the worst part, that shed didn't have a back wall, just trees behind it. He could have been slipping in and out for weeks without anyone ever seeing.